does the miner work within the network? How do they function within the network?
Okay, think of mining as like gold mining.
Yep.
Okay, so I mean, if you're going to create something of value, it has to be something that's hard to get, unless you're a conquistador and you can just go and steal money. You got to work for it. Everybody has to work for their money. So Bitcoin created a system where you're working to create this value, and by using energy. In physics, energy is part of the formula for work. So that's the simplest way to express work mathematically, is using energy. And so they create an algorithm that uses a certain amount of energy to create the the outputs for the
For the new Bitcoin.
for the bitcoins.
For the new Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I mean, how do they verify it? Do they verify through the nodes, or if I'll be sending, let's say for example, if I'll be sending Bitcoin from one person to another, how they will be able to verify that's a valid transaction?
Okay. Well, when you use a Bitcoin client, you're broadcasting a transaction out to nodes. So if you're using a full client, then you're using your own node to broadcast it. If you're using a simplified client, a light client rather, you're using someone else's. What happens then, once your transaction goes out onto the node, to a node, it starts to go out into the channels, and then other nodes pick it up. Okay, and then in order for it to get verified, it has to be included in a block by a miner, but not just one. It has to be verified by several. Here's what can happen. You're sending a transaction out to a node, and it goes into a block, let's say, but then someone else, another miner, finds the same block at about the same time. Okay, but when he broadcasts it, it gets verified by more nodes, and so, but he didn't happen to get your transaction. It went in this one, but not in this one. But this one is the one that got picked up by others, and for some reason yours didn't. So yours gets dropped. So yes, it got verified, but then it gets dropped because this other one got it. Well then, but yours will keep going. Yours will keep going, and then eventually it'll get into that chain, and it'll get included in a later block.
Is there a tendency that there are two nodes that could get this Bitcoin? Because it will be running through the
No,
nodes,
because
right?
well, yes. You can have two miners getting the same bitcoins at the same time, but the rules are the miners can't spend those bitcoins until they have, I think, like 100 verifications, and so because they could be taken away. It's like you can have a block, but and you don't know that someone else got it. They don't know you got it, and you don't know they got it.
To a different nodes. It may
Right,
pass the first
right.
node.
They all have to propagate, and then whichever one gets the most propagation wins. So you have to have, when you have a miner, you have to have very well connected nodes. You can't be mining in an island. You have to be connected to other nodes, and so it behooves you to be connected to them, because then they will pick up yours, and then they will. Well,
So how?
I think it was. Let's see. I'm missing. No, I'm missing. I'm sorry. I'm missing a part. Okay, the reason why you have to have more is because more verifications is because it creates a larger block with more proof of work.
A larger block. How
Yeah.
do they create a larger block? Because the blocks are nodes, right? No.
No. The
What's the difference between the blocks and the node? Nodes
okay.
are
The nodes just, all they do is just relay the information.
Relay, okay.
Right.
And then the blocks.
And so let's say if you have two people that find the block at the same time, it's going to be the one that comes after, the one that gets the block after that. Okay, the one that they get the most information from will be included in that block. So let's say like here, you and I both find a block at the same time, right? Well, it's all these. Let's say I'm sending a transaction. It gets found, or it gets included in this one, but not in this one. But then this one, then let's say this guy finds a block. Okay. But this one gets more propagation, so this chain goes into this one, and this one doesn't. So what happens to my transaction that went here? It gets lost, but it's still in the system. And it will, and all the other propagation will eventually include it in one of the blocks on down the road. So it'll get dropped. So you'll see that sometimes. You'll see that you get one verification, and then one verification, just one, and then it might be a while before someone else picks it up, and then you have to wait until there's a whole chain that it does the same thing. It'll be like, they'll be like here, and then yeah, it just keep going like that. So it's really messy. But it's the one that creates the longest chain. So that's the one that wins. So it has to have all these nodes, connecting so that you get your transactions in.
I couldn't still figure out how does it work within the nodes. I mean, if I'll be
you don't really need nodes. You do. I mean, the miners themselves are nodes, and that's why they've really been kind of dropping off. I mean, you need them if you want the transactions to go through. They really need to come up with a better system, because when they separated the miners from the nodes, the only incentive to run a node is to get your own transactions propagated. Because what's in it for me? Remember, what's in it for me to verify your transactions? So there's nothing in it for me. All I'm doing is spending power and time on running a node, and it doesn't pay me anything. So that's the problem right now.
That's the reason why they are now giving out like some bitcoins. If the miner was able to verify, then.
So yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it. Miners are going to have to find a way to remunerate nodes for propagating the transactions. And perhaps the Lightning Network will do something like that.
Who are these people?
Or they'll come up with a new way to broadcast Bitcoin through like a torrent type system. Now, if you have a torrent type system, it could do two things. One, it would keep things anonymous, and two, it can keep channels open to like payment channels, so that people can be paid to run the nodes. So if they come up with a whole new node type system, it wouldn't change Bitcoin, because the miners themselves would still be mining exactly the same, but the nodes would run differently. So they can always do that. I don't think developers have really had a good incentive to come up with something like that, but I'm sure they will. So.
Who are these people? The Lightning, what do you call this one? Lightning.
Okay, Lightning Network.
Lightning Network.
Was some developers came up with this concept. Well, actually, it had been talked about even long before then. Bitcoin can set up a payment. You can set up a payment channel yourself. Let's say that you and I wanted to set up a payment channel between us, so that we could keep track. Yeah, keep track of trades between us without having to pay mining fees all the time, right? And so what we do is we create a contract, and then it has it has Bitcoins that are locked away, where it required, you know, in a end lock time transaction that's locked away, and then we can send updated versions of the contract to each other. What we do is we just rewrite the contract back and forth at each other and just change the amounts so that it's still using the same addresses,
Same addresses.
but it'll be different different amounts. And then the contract, when we decide to close the contract, one of us can close the contract, and then when either you can go ahead and release your key, or I can just wait for the timer to run out. Either way. Or if you decide that, hey, you just did a transaction we didn't agree with, I'm closing it right now, and then that one won't go through. So what it does is it's a way to transact between two people
So is
fairly.
there a possibility